All right, I already gave him the intro. Let's welcome him into the show. Larry Andersen, LA. What is up, buddy?
What's happening? How you doing?
So are you currently down in Clearwater, sir?
Yes, I am.
You a part of the Phillies golf outing yesterday?
I was there.
Okay, so you saw legendary Larry get the ace?
I was a unwilling, I shouldn't say unwilling participant. I was a uncontributing participant in the golf tournament yesterday.
Nice. So how is Florida so far? It looks like a lot of fundamentals are getting worked on this week. It's great to see Charlie back in the building. How has your experience been thus far?
It's been fun. I went up there yesterday, watched Nola throw live batting practice. He looked good. He and Willer, a couple others, they look like it's July for them. I mean, they came in, a lot of these guys came in, they're ready to go. And I think they're chomping at the bit, especially after the last 2 years, the way things ended, especially last year. I think it left a bitter taste in their mouth. They're like, we're coming in. And although there weren't a whole lot of changes, I think if you look at this team, how far they got the last 2 years, I don't think they need to make a lot of changes. I will say this, I don't think there's a lot of depth. But the talent they have right now, I think, is certainly enough to take it all the way.
Yeah, and Larry, you've been a part of a number, obviously, very successful teams, and something that stands out to me is a lot of those groups were, as you've even called them, the band of the misfits, guys that were maybe underrated or overlooked and came together and had the camaraderie, had the chemistry. What similarities do you see from this group compared to some of your past teams that you were a part of?
I think the biggest thing is, and I say this a lot, the camaraderie or the chemistry of the players. I think Dombrowski, David has talked to this a number of times. I think Middleton has mentioned it recently, that the guys that they bring in, they want to make sure they fit in, not just as a player, but as a part of the team, as part of the group, not taking away from what they have. And somebody asked me last year, somebody was saying something about Juan Soto. And I don't know if I said it publicly or if I said it to somebody privately, but I said, I'll take Garrett Stubbs over Soto. And people look at me and go crazy. I'm sorry. I don't see Soto as a team player. I don't. I don't see him doing with his talent what he's capable of doing. I don't see him doing as much as some others. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I might be way off base, but like a guy like Stubby, he's so important to that team because what he brings. He just the energy he brings all the time. When things are going through the game, he's there. He's pulling for his teammates. You have to be really careful to bring people in that don't fit the mold that your team has right now. And that's the one thing I think the similarity is that these guys love each other. They have a great time. They have fun together. And I think it shows in the way they play. Obviously, the last 2 years, they didn't finish the job, especially last year. But it doesn't take away from the fact that they really pull for each other. And they're just a great team, a great chemistry and great camaraderie.
LA, you don't travel as much as you used to, so you're not around as many ballparks. But I think Whit Merrifield's comments this week speak to just that. Like, he said word gets around baseball, not only the atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park, but how close this team is, how much fun they have. I mean, you've seen it before. Like, that can be the difference of a championship team and not. And I think Whit Merrifield saying that means word is out around baseball, what's going on in Philly.
Yeah, the unselfishness of what he said, like he mentioned that he could have gone somewhere else and been an everyday player. He's like, I'm at the end of my career. I know where I'm at, and that's one thing. He knows who he is as a player, as a person. And he's like, you know what? I want a chance to go deep into the playoffs. I want a chance to win a world championship. And for him to come here and say, I'm okay with moving around, with coming off the bench, with getting some sporadic play consistently. And to say that, I think speaks volumes about this club and talking to other people that have been here or have seen it and ask them what it's like. They're like, it's anything you can imagine times 10. And it is. It's the way the fans, the reactions, the way they've taken to this team has been phenomenal.
And you know firsthand what it's like moving. You're no stranger to moving city to city. I had to write this down. I couldn't believe 6 different cities in Major League Baseball across 17 years that you were a part of, 12 different cities in the minors across 9.5 seasons. And when you came to Philly and had a chance to play with teammates like Mike Schmidt and Steve Carlton and Tug, you know, what was that experience like as someone coming into Philly new compared to the previous cities you had been a part of?
In a word, intimidating.
Yeah.
I came from, and I talk to people about this all the time, and it's no knock on the guys I played with in Seattle, but I left Seattle. They bought my contract from Seattle. I was actually on loan to the Phillies AAA team when they bought my contract. I mean, Seattle didn't even want me in AAA, so I was okay with that. But in Seattle, Dave Edler was our third baseman, Paul Cerna at shortstop, Julio Cruz at second, Bruce Bhakti at first, Rod Bowling catcher. I mean, these are not household names. If you get my drift, I'm not trying to dog anybody here. And I was a part of that Seattle team that wasn't very good. I was a part of it for 2 years, but to leave that and then walk into the clubhouse at 30 years old and already having some big league experience and walking in and seeing Schmidt, Carlton, Morgan, Perez, Rose. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the wrong place, obviously. I mean, that's how I felt. And then my locker, they put my locker right next to Tug, that was actually a blessing in disguise because he just relaxes you. He just made it fun all the time, which I appreciated. And so to come into that Philly clubhouse, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to be good or this is not going to go well. But it was, and it is in retrospect, looking back, one of the greatest thrills of my life, walking into that clubhouse and seeing all these Hall of Famers on the same team. And that's not counting the other guy, the guys that weren't Hall of Famers, Gary Maddox in center field and Sarge in left field, Gary Matthews, Lescano. I mean, it was a good ball club and a little older and a little longer in the tooth, a little older, but these guys knew how to play and they knew how to win.
So, Larry, integrating the youth with the veteran core in place, not everybody can be a $25 million player. The Phillies are leaning in two pretty big spots this year in center field and a high leverage bullpen arm, whatever you want to call him, in Orion Kerkering. Do you expect both these kids to step up because they're being counted on for big roles this year?
Yeah, I do. I think, and Rojas, I thought, a lot of guys didn't hit in the playoffs. I mean, they did at certain times, but then when it came to the end, like everybody just kind of tanked. And at the same time, and that was just unfortunate. It's not like they planned to do that or wanted to do that. But Rojas, he really struggled there. And I think he got exposed a little more for his inexperience. But during the season, he did a nice job. The one thing they said this spring, and I saw him, he bulked up a little bit. And I don't know, for me, that creates a little more concern. If it's to get his energy, not his energy level, but it's just his overall everyday level, to get that throughout a 6-month season is one thing. But to do it to try and hit the ball a little further, I mean, to me, this is obviously my personal opinion, but he should be bunting every day and doing everything he can to hit the ball on the ground, which goes totally against analytics. But if he's not hitting the ball on the ground, he's not utilizing his biggest asset, and that's his wheels, his speed. And so, I mean, I don't know what they're talking to him about, if they want him lifting the ball more or if they're, they don't want him hitting the ball on the ground. It's baffling, but he's got that speed. If he can just utilize it, if he can put the bat on the ball, bunt the ball, hit the top of the ball, if it's not hit right at an infielder, he's got a chance to beat every infield hit out or every ball he hits in the ground. So, I think and he's so valuable in the outfield. To have him in center just makes the world of difference defensively, which as a pitcher is what you want. Kerkering, I think, came up. He doesn't seem to be intimidated by the big leagues, but one of the things it just baffled me is last year he spent the year in the minor leagues, right, until he came up at the end. In the whole year, you know how many times he pitched back-to-back days?
0. Insane.
How do I just excuse me? I can't wrap my head around that. How they allow that to happen at the minor league level And so the first time he ever pitched back-to-back days was in the playoffs. And then the other thing I talked to Rob Thompson about, I was like, why is this guy, he's throwing 97, 98 as his fastball. Why is he throwing all sliders? I did it because I didn't have a fastball. I didn't have a choice. I had to try and trick him with something else because my cheese wasn't going to get by anybody. But for him throwing 97, 98 and not using it, I'm like, how does that happen? And then they said that, the analytics people said in the minor leagues, they hit, 118 or whatever it was off his slider. I'm like, yeah, but you know what you just said where he did that? He did that in low A ball, in A ball, in double A. And he had maybe 2 games in triple A of that. I think it's so important to understand that the minor leagues are vastly different from the major leagues. They just are. I think they're further apart. AAA from the big leagues is further apart now than it used to be. Whether people believe that or not, I certainly do, because I see guys that excel at AAA, they get the big leagues, and it's just like, how do you do that down there and he's doing this up here? It's kind of baffling. But I mean, they're both guys, Rojas and Kirkland, I think are going to be big keys to this season. I really do.
Yeah. And Elliot, you're saying a lot of the same things and asking the same questions I know we've talked about here on the show. I'm curious to know, going into this season, what are the, 2, maybe 3 key areas that you'd like to see the Phillies step up and make adjustments to have a successful year this season?
I think one of the biggest things is just consistency, knowing themselves and recognizing pitches, knowing what to swing at, what not to swing at. I think that a big part of, to me, we have one of the greatest slugging teams ever, but for me, one of the worst offensive average teams. We have guys that can hit the ball out of the park. We don't have guys that can hit the ball in play consistently. And the strikeouts were extremely high as a team. And I think that they can put up great numbers, but you have to put the bat on the ball. If you put the bat on the ball, there's a chance you can get on base. If you're striking out, you're not getting on base. And I think to me, that's the biggest thing. I think this isn't up to the players specifically, but I think the health is going to be very important. As I said earlier, I don't think there's a ton of depth. So it's vitally important that these guys stay healthy. And I think that's something that the club, the organization as a whole is looking at, is what they can do, especially starting in spring training, early part of the season, making sure that guys get their rest, that they're healthy, that they're strong at the end of the season. And I think that's probably the biggest key. The consistency and staying healthy, I think, are the 2 biggest things they have to think about this year.
Yeah. Now, LA, people know from videos of you throughout the years, you like to have fun, and you're a baseball player and you get it. Now, you said you weren't liked in Seattle maybe by the organization as much. I just read today about this Jell-O prank, which I did not know about. So for those out there that might not be familiar with you, you're one of the great pranksters, and you really enjoyed your time in baseball. What were you thinking pulling the bed out of the room of your manager? Can you please explain the Jell-O prank to those that might not be familiar with it?
But this might take a couple months. The Jell-O prank went on for about 6 months. But it started with Joe Simpson, who's currently a broadcaster with the Braves. He was our center fielder. Richie Zisk, who was our DH in Seattle. The 3 of us got together, and Renee Latchin was our manager, one of my favorite managers of all time, because he was honest. Dead honest. And he would tell you to your face, you're not good enough. And he basically told me I wasn't good enough to come back to the Phillies, to the Mariners in '83. But he actually told me in spring training, he said, you're going to have to, or in the winter before spring training in '83, he said, you're going to have a good spring to make this club. And I said, Latch, why are you lying to me? And he goes, I'm not lying. I never lie to you. I won't lie to you. I'm not lying to anybody. I was like, well, you just did. And he goes, how? And I said, you said I was going to have a good spring to make this club. And he goes, exactly. I said, no, that's a lie. He goes, how? I said, I'm going to have an outstanding spring to make this club, and you know it. And he kind of laughed, and he said, well, maybe. But anyway, he was just a great guy. But he liked to have his social sparklers now and then. And we were in Chicago, and he went out to Rush Street and kind of got in a little late. Well, in the hotel lobby bar, there was Lee Pelikutis was our traveling secretary, who later became their general manager. But he was our traveling secretary. He got a key for us to Latch's suite. So Richie
Gosh.
Zisk, Simpson, and myself, we went and bought 18 or 16 boxes of cherry Jello. He had 2 toilets in his suite. We got the key from Lee. We get in suite, put 8 boxes of Jello in each toilet, got buckets of ice, put it in the toilet, start stirring it, trying to get it to gel. We took his bed, put it in the shower, his mattress, I should say. We toilet papered his room. We took all the light pieces out, all the light fixtures out, the light bulb. And we took the mouthpiece out of his phone.
Oh, wow.
And we unplugged anything that was plugged in, we unplugged. So his alarm had like 11:01. So that's when he knew this is when it happened at night. He came home from Rush Street and just wanted to plop on his bed. Well, all there was a box spring. And then we had written some things in French on his mirror with soap. And so it basically became the great Jello caper. And it went on. We actually, for every road trip we had after that, he would have a bowl of Jello in his suite. Lee would set it up ahead of time. And so he just got going. And so we were in Baltimore one time, later in the season. And Dave Niehaus said, Latch, I think when we had Dave Niehaus was our broadcaster, Hall of Fame broadcaster, he was in on it. And he goes, Latch, I think I know what's going on with the Jello stuff. And he goes, I got it on my recorder. And Latch says, well, give it to me. He said, no, I can't. I got to do the pregame show and the postgame. So after that, I'll bring it into you. So it just so happened after the game, we won the game. Richie just got a big game, so he was the star of the game. So we said to Richie, before you do the radio show at postgame, he said, make sure you tell Dave to, come in the clubhouse and tell Latch that he lost you recorded over it or whatever. So after the game, Latch walks into the clubhouse and he goes, Dave Niehaus, come here. And Dave started to say something and just kind of shook his head like, no, Latch, I can't. And Latch blurted out, those blankety blanks got to you, didn't they? So he knew something was going on. So then we went to New York after that. We got where you used to be able to make up newspaper headlines.
Yeah.
But I had probably about 10 or 15 newspaper headlines made up. It said, Jello Gate tapes lost, Latch baffled. It kind of just went on. And then at the end of the season, we made 3 of the big brown paper grocery sacks or bags and made Joe Simpson kind of colored them in like they were Jello boxes. And the 3 of us put them on our head, and Latch did kind of a what's my line thing, or who, asking questions, trying to figure out who it was. He still didn't know who the 3 guys were specifically until after this team party at the end of the season. And that's
Great.
basically how it unfolded.
That is a tight knit
Went
locker
into it.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Secrets were safe in there, I guess, LA, huh?
Yeah.
I love that you tell that story with a straight face. And honestly, I feel it makes me wonder what else happened, because I was reading and watching some past interviews and different things, and I know you mentioned I didn't know about the Jello story itself, but different things about the celebrations, the dance parties, jamming out to, High Hopes, Mitch Williams, aka Mitchie Poo, Sunflower Seeds, everything, the Spin Doctors, a lot of very memorable moments. And I'm sure, and I wish we had time to talk about them all day, but I'm curious to know, outside of the Jello story, what is something that stands out as one of the most memorable, it could be wild, funny, whatever, direction it goes, story from your experiences with these guys during your time in Philly?
1993, our number 1 draft pick was Wayne Gomes. He came out of Old Dominion. I was coaching in it was 90. He was our number 1 pick in 93, but I coached him in 95 when I was a player coach in AA. And he kept messing with me. We had the pitchers chart the games, and he kept breaking the pencils to go with the chart, to chart the games. So I called him Grimace. I had nicknames for all of them. I called him Grimace from the McDonald's, the purple thing. So I said, Grimace, you keep doing it. You keep messing with me, I'm going to get you. Well, he kept, the next day, sure enough, he breaks the pencil. I'm like, all right, that's it. Well, I got in touch with the Phillies organization, talked with Lee Thomas, our general manager, had him in on it, Gomes' agent, had everybody in on this thing. and Bill Dancy was our manager in Reading, and we had a meeting after a game. And he said, I just want you guys to know that Wayne Gomes has just been traded to Japan. And they had a crew come in from ESPN, the magazine, and they asked me to set this up. And they said, do you have a prank? Can you pull a prank, for the program? And I said, I'll figure something out. So this is what it was. He got on the phone, and they had a guy named James Chang, who was actually Korean, but and he had a microphone, had the mic that you plug in, he had it in his coat pocket, in his sports coat. So nothing was really happening, but they followed him around, and they said, well, they're doing a special documentary for minor league baseball for a Japanese company. And so they said they have permission to go anywhere they want. So he followed Gomesy around all the time. And then when he found out he was traded, he gets on the phone. He goes in Bill Dancy's office, the manager's office. He's calling his mom. He's calling his girlfriend or fiance at the time. And he's like, I just got traded to Japan. I think I'm going to Nomo's old team, the Yasuchuchi Massachusetts or something. And he couldn't even say what it was, but he was dumbfounded. And it went on that day throughout the workout and spring training. He's packing his bags. He's throwing his shoes to Larry Mitchell, who was his best friend on the team. Mitch is like crying. He goes, I don't want your shoes. I don't want them. It got going. So I almost got to the point where I felt bad, just a little bit, but not a lot.
Just a little.
Almost.
So after all this happened, after batting, this was actually pregame, all this happened. And then after the game, Dance came in and said, well, you said, you want to say something, LA, and talk, just about what's going on. I said, well, I appreciate what you've done for us this year, Gomesy, and I'm sorry you're not going to be here for the playoffs. It's just sad. But I'm not going to miss the fact that you kept messing with me, kept breaking the pencils. And I said, I told you I would get you, and I just got you. And his grin went from ear to ear. He was already packed his bag, and it was the thing where he's going to have to leave in 2 days. So he's have to pack his bags, get home, pack all his stuff up, and be ready to head to Japan. And so that ended up being.
It was so good, LA. They pulled it out on Kyle Kendrick a couple years later. So you were a ground setter in the prank game, and
yes.
Great stories. Well, buddy, I don't want to keep you forever because we could talk baseball all day with you. Yeah. We very much appreciate your time. Looking forward to you and Scott on the call back at home this year. We're 2 days away from baseball. It's a great time of the year. We love you, LA. The whole town does. Thanks for your time today, and we'll hear you on the radio real soon, pal.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed it.